Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Well, someone has stolen benches from a boardwalk that Caldwell First Nation just put the finishing touches on. We hear from the chief tonight. Plus, parking woes in East Windsor. Parents with children say it's put them in a tough position. And Monarch butterflies travel thousands of kilometers to rest every fall. Well, one man is running their migration path. I hit the riverfront to hear more about why he's heading to Mexico. Tonight, we're sharing an update on yesterday's shooting in Little Italy. Police today say they're looking for 2 suspects. This was the scene on Peary Street and Erie Avenue yesterday afternoon. Officers responding to a call about a shooting. Today, police confirmed that multiple shots were fired. A 33-year-old man is being treated for gunshot wounds in hospital. Police say his injuries are serious, but he is expected to survive. This took place around 1:20 on Tuesday. Now, the Windsor Police Service is asking anyone with security cameras that captured anything suspicious in the area to give them a call. Officers are looking for 2 people they believe are suspects. Both are described as white men. One has short, dark hair. The other had a beard. Police say both were dressed in all black. That's the only information released at this time. A sewer construction project in Windsor is causing some headaches for residents, and not because of noise, but because of a lack of parking. The project on Ellesmere Avenue between Erie Street and Giles has some complaining the city isn't doing enough. And as Dale Mulder reports, Ontario's ombudsman may be getting involved.
I have a toddler and a newborn, and that's kind of difficult if it's going to be raining or if we have groceries or if it's dark when we get home. I don't really want to be walking 3 streets away with 2 children, so that's an issue for me. Some residents are elderly, some have some handicap issues.
I have 2 children, one with autism and a son with a visual impairment.
Katie Reed says she has to walk a long distance with her kids and groceries because she can't park in front of her house. She has a garage off the alley behind her house, but she says she can't open the doors in her van inside the garage, and she doesn't want to leave it outside for security reasons. She says the city promised parking permits in city lots down the street, but was then denied.
I would even be willing to pay for a parking permit, but that was also denied. The city is creating a hardship for my family.
Reed says the Ontario Ombudsman is contacting the city about the issue. CBC News is trying to verify that. A senior engineer with the city says they have worked out alternate arrangements with some of the residents to use their garages off the alley. She says the 3 parking lots are for businesses on Erie Street.
The parking lot has very limited capacity, which my understanding of only 3 parking space available, which is mainly for the BIA area.
The president of the BIA says they would gladly offer space if they could. Their residents can park on the street during rainy days and weekends when the road work isn't going on. The residents may soon have another option. The Essex County District School Board is investigating the feasibility of allowing them to park at the Giles Campus School across the street. The road work isn't supposed to wrap up until December. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
It was a celebration earlier this summer for Caldwell First Nation as they opened a new boardwalk in Leamington. But tonight, the chief and residents are less than thrilled. That's after benches from that boardwalk went missing. The CBC's TJ Deere has more.
Weeks ago, this peaceful boardwalk was opened by Caldwell First Nation to the public, a place where everyone could enjoy the sights, sounds, and smells of nature. However, that peace was recently disturbed. Signs at the entrance were bent, 2 benches were stolen, and the binoculars at one of the lookout points was damaged. The benches are typically fastened down to the wooden planks, but all that remains of the 2 benches are the drill holes. The binoculars, typically sturdy, is now loose. Members of the Caldwell First Nation alerted the band office Tuesday morning about the damage.
Makes me sad that happened, for sure. And it makes me sad that, that's an expense on the nation. But more so, it really hurts, the good things that we can all do together as people, as human beings, not just, individual races. This isn't just about one nation. This is about all nations, this boardwalk.
People were using the boardwalk today, and they were upset about the damage, too.
I think it's disgusting. I just don't understand it.
The mentality for destroying things that are beautiful is bad.
Chief Duckworth says they're still trying to figure out how much all this damage will cost.
We have been really busy since we opened this boardwalk. We've had a lot of good comments. We've had a person from Kingsville write a letter to the editor about how much that he enjoyed spending time here at the boardwalk, and that's what we want to keep going. We just want that to keep going.
The OPP liaison has been informed about the vandalism and is looking into the matter. TJ Deere, CBC News, Caldwell First Nation.
It's been 2 years since the Taliban took control in Afghanistan. The Canadian government and military have pulled out. We shared with you last night the story of an Afghan woman in Windsor desperate to bring her family here to Canada. And she's not alone. An untold number of Afghans who helped while Canadians were there are still waiting to come here under federal immigration programs. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian has an update.
My wife, my sister here with me, my brother.
Pictures and video are all Asad Ali Afghan can show his daughter of their loved ones. He's a former interpreter for the Canadian military. He arrived in Canada last year after fleeing Afghanistan. His two brothers and sister and their kids are hoping to do the same.
Like a person divided in two places, it's always hard.
Afghans' relatives fled for neighboring Pakistan after Kabul fell to the Taliban, but 2 years later, the Canadian government has yet to open up their case files. His brother says the Taliban targets those who helped the West and their relatives. He asked us to hide his identity because he still doesn't feel safe. He barely steps out, concerned about threats from local law enforcement.
It's always dangerous there to, stay for longer.
Asad Ali Afghan is still fighting to bring his family here. He says he's provided Immigration Canada documents showing he's financially responsible for his siblings and hasn't seen any movement.
What we've seen from the government is slow inaction on making sure that the most vulnerable can get to safety.
Opposition parties and refugee advocates have urged Ottawa to move faster to bring Afghans here. The government says it's doing what it can and may even expand their program to include more people.
There is some uncertainty in the number of people, obviously, that assisted Canada, and clearly what their family members, who their family members are, and the level of risk that those people face in that country. And it's not like Canada will hit a number and walk away from the table.
The Immigration Department says it expects some 40,000 Afghans will have landed here by the end of the year. Unclear if that will include Asad Ali Afghan's family. Officials have told him the files are under review. Rafi Boudjikanian on CBC News, Ottawa.
Opposition leaders at Queen's Park continue to go after the Ford government over the Greenbelt land swap.
When Minister Clark and Premier Ford tell us they knew nothing, they're lying. I don't like using that word. I've never used it in this place. But that's what's happening.
Interim Liberal leader John Fraser expressing his frustration today, saying no one in the Ford government has been held accountable for the deal. It's been a week since an Auditor General's report said the land swap was influenced by a small group of well-connected developers. The report said developers could now see the value of the land increase by $8 billion. It noted the land selection process was largely controlled by Housing Minister Steve Clark's chief of staff. Today, Fraser called for Clark to resign. Dozens of people rallied outside TVO headquarters in Toronto in support of workers who are set to strike later this week.
TVO has had wages that have not risen with inflation for over a decade. So every single year they want us to make less money. And you can't do that in perpetuity, not when inflation is as high as it is now.
TVO employees are pushing not only for higher wages, but also for more permanent contracts instead of temporary work with missing health benefits and job security. The Canadian Media Guild is representing journalists, producers, and education workers who will officially go on strike this Friday. TVO says it added 20 permanent full-time positions this year, and it remains confident they will reach an agreement. The CMG trade union also represents employees at the CBC. Well, a Montreal man is passing through Windsor today on foot. He's running 4,500 kilometers from Montreal to Mexico, and he's doing it for what he calls the real ultra-marathon runners. I caught up with him literally to hear more about his mission. This might be a first for me. You've actually ran to this interview.
Exactly. I'm arriving from Montreal. I left on July 29th and I'm heading towards Mexico, hoping to arrive on November 1st.
And what are you running for?
Well, Monarch conservation and more broadly, leaving a better planet to the next generation. Basically, we're following the monarch butterfly in its winter migration towards Mexico. We hope to finish on November 1st in the center of Mexico in a region called Michoacan, where all the monarch butterflies finish and spend their winter.
How many kilometers are you running every day?
Approximately 52, 53.
Okay, well, I don't want to hold you up, so I'm thinking we might as well take this chat on the run.
Let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So why monarch butterflies?
Well, monarch butterflies are endangered, first of all. Second of all, they're an international emblem for biodiversity, and so I saw a beautiful opportunity to raise awareness with regards to its protection, but more broadly open a discussion towards protecting biodiversity and our planet.
You're obviously running a ton of kilometers a day. Are you exhausted?
Not at all. I've had 2 weeks now behind me just to adapt. I had some little issues with regards to knees and tendons, but things are really going well since last weekend. I hit that 2 weeks mark and all systems are go. I'm finishing my days with still lots of energy and a beautiful smile.
So I know you're on this trip with your daughter. What do you hope that she gets out of this run?
Well, I really hope takes away that it's important to take action. And there's been lots of talking, and which is okay. You know, we need to talk, we need to plan, but we're at that turning point, I think, that everybody has to pitch in and do their own ultra in a certain way. So that's what I really hope she takes away, is that Daddy wasn't only talking, but also taking action.
A beautiful day to run for a very nice initiative. Well, Bata and his wife have set a pretty competitive goal for the Monarch fundraiser. He's hoping to raise $1 for every meter he runs, which is about $4.5 million. You can track him on his social media profiles as he runs through 3 countries in 90 days. Well, to another group now I thought may be an endangered species, the always hopeful Detroit Lions fan, but season ticket sales have proven me otherwise, selling out all of their season tickets for the first time in 2 decades. Well, we caught up with a first-time season ticket holder and a longtime fan to gauge the optimism this season.
So here we got some autographs, just Little Miss Brown, my all-time favorite, Eddie Murray, Rob Rubick. Here we have, this is from the first game at Ford Field, and the Tigers were playing the Yankees that day. So we went to the Tiger game, walked across the street, and seen Green Bay beat the Lions, but nonetheless very exciting.
You're a Lions season ticket holder for the first time ever. Tell me why this year, Roland.
Why not? This is the year. I mean, the excitement, the everything about them. I mean, you look at what we've been through in my lifetime alone. I mean, 1 playoff win. You know, I've been a Detroiter. I mean, I loved going to the Silverdome. I missed the Silverdome, I'm not going to lie. I mean, Barry, come on. Eddie Murray, greatest Canadian kicker of all time. His autograph's on my wall. And now to see it all come to fruition after all we've been through since they moved into Ford Field, it's been one disaster after another. It was something else. And then you see a regime come from a winning culture. And all of a sudden, things start falling in place. They're drafting players. You got Amon St. Brown coming in the 4th round that puts up Pro Bowl style numbers. I mean, the excitement is there and everybody's hopping on board. We were just lucky to get in a little bit earlier than most. I mean, we talked about it for years, but I couldn't justify it. It's like, well, SOL. Well, SOL's dead, baby. This is the time, and we are nothing less than a home playoff game this year. And I can't wait for the party when they finally win. The Lions win this thing, and they will. Look out. Windsor will be the hottest place on the planet.
It was always, the Lions would find a way to lose. They would find a way to lose key games. And that was just a trend that seems like it was forever with this team. So you didn't put the bar up too high. You just hoped that they had a chance. And to the Lions fans, you got to give them a lot of credit. They have stuck by this team through the bad times. And, their stadium has always been pretty full. You look at all the Lions jerseys, caps, all of that. They love this team.
Well, you heard it here first. Nothing less than a home playoff game for the Lions this season. You gotta love the passion. Well, a beautiful day out there today. If you've been paying attention, you know that's probably not going to be sticking around long. Colette Kennedy will break all that down for us coming up. The Northwest Territories is now operating under a state of emergency because of ongoing wildfires. Evacuation orders remain in place in 5 communities, and more orders are expected over the next 24 hours. In Yellowknife, about 400 people are now under an evacuation alert and being told to be ready to leave on a moment's notice. fire is burning less than 20 kilometers west of the capital and is moving toward the city. There are fears the fire could reach Yellowknife by the weekend. An evacuation order along the highway that links the capital to southern areas of the territory has been extended to the city boundary. Colette, really devastating to watch all those wildfires across the world, really, and obviously here in Windsor, we've been so lucky, but we were impacted earlier with the smoke from the fires in northern Ontario. I'm just curious, will we be seeing any of the smoke from these fires like we did earlier this summer?
Yeah, and that's the thing, Meg. Good question. As at times it's pushed back into parts of Ontario, and I don't even mean just the smoke from northern Ontario. I'm talking about some of the smoke from the west. We've seen that even come towards the lower Great Lakes. In the short term, the answer is that we're going to be doing okay, and we're not going to have to deal with that. But it's such a beautiful landscape, and then to see it charred, it's so hard to look at those images. But this is looking at smoke in the atmosphere. It can be in the upper atmosphere, but can be very dense right towards the surface. And just look how concentrated it is as we take you through NWT, but also looking at northern Alberta and into northern Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then we pick up some of the other fires and that smoke carries on. A few days ago, we were seeing a little bit of this coming down into, say, Peterborough region, but it's really just in the upper atmosphere and has been receding thanks to some of the prevailing winds. So other areas, look at all the air quality statements that there are across our nation. And then I want to turn our attention to the west because of some of the heat there as well. Excessive heat into not just BC, but spreading into Alberta, not as bad as 2021, but still it does become cumulative. And then we go south, and you see this has been going on for weeks and weeks in the southwestern U.S. But what I want to point out is how this plume of heat is starting to push into the northern plains. So we may be seeing a bit of a heat dome setting up there that could have an impact on southwestern Ontario, and we'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow. I do want to show you, though, in the short term, there's actually a cold front with an area of low pressure headed our way. So some cooler readings here coming out of the eastern prairies compared to some of the more beautiful conditions from today and the temperatures. Along that frontal boundary, showers, thunderstorms have developed, and that is going to be tracking towards us. So just looking at the timing, I think tomorrow morning is going to be just fine. And then we'll start to see some increasing cloudiness. And I would expect it's going to be after the lunch hour that we get into some showers and thunderstorms. Could be some heavier downpours here, some winds gusting over 70 kilometers an hour, small hail, the potential is there. Into the afternoon, this is just as much lighter stuff that will be left behind. Into the evening hours is what I want to say. Lighter stuff left behind, and then it will move away, but the temperatures behind it will be cooler. So 26 tomorrow, decent in the morning, breezy conditions as the winds kick up out of the southwest, slightly cooler, but a beautiful picturesque day on Friday once we break out of that. And then this is what I want you to know is the setup into the weekend, especially the second half of the weekend till about mid next week, Meg. We're talking about heat, but that humidity becoming extreme as well.
Well, I'll definitely be watching for that air quality as well. Thanks so much for that, Colette.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Picking up trash might be one of the least favorable household tasks, but some are making it into a competition. We have more on that coming up. The Canadian tourism industry has been recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, but there are concerns about the possible impact of a move by the Chinese government. China has left Canada off a list of countries approved as international travel destinations for tour groups. The CBC's Kate McKenna looks at why and what it could mean for Canada.
Post-pandemic business has been a bit slow for this boat tour company.
It's hit and miss. We aren't fully booked online, and we depend on a lot of walk-by passengers.
And now a new challenge. China lifted a pandemic ban on group tours in some countries. 138 nations have been approved, but Canada is not on the list.
It's definitely a step backwards. It's a shame that we don't see many group customers anymore. Hopefully it'll change in the future.
An industry association says this move will hurt businesses from coast to coast.
Travelers from China are really important to Canadian operators. They visit longer. They spend on average about 42 days per visit, and they spend a lot more money than visitors from other parts of the world.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry made the announcement last week. They say it's in response to the subject that's dominated news headlines this year. In a statement, the Chinese embassy says lately the Canadian side has repeatedly hyped up the so-called Chinese interference, and rampant and discriminatory anti-Asian acts and words are rising significantly in Canada. The Chinese government attaches great importance to protecting the safety and legitimate rights of overseas Chinese citizens and wishes they can travel in a safe and friendly environment. Global Affairs Canada did not respond to a request for comment. But the leader of the opposition says Canada hasn't done enough to stop alleged Chinese meddling in Canadian elections.
I don't know what hard line you could accuse Justin Trudeau of taking. What has he done? He's done nothing. He's not called a public inquiry into foreign interference. He's not set up a foreign influence registry.
Experts say the Chinese decision will cost tens of millions of dollars at a time when the tourism industry is already suffering.
It's going to have a huge impact on the ability for operators to continue to regain the lost revenue that they suffered during the pandemic.
Something that's top of mind here in Peggy's Cove for this company trying to stay in business, now embroiled in international geopolitics. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Will ever think you'd get a gold medal for taking out the trash? Well, in Japan, you can. These folks are taking part in Spagomi, which gets its name from combining the Japanese words for sports and litter picking. The competition started in Japan and has spread around the world. Teams are ranked on how much and what kind of trash they pick up in a set period. And the winning team here will get a chance to go to Tokyo in November to compete in the World Championships. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the free CBC app on the App Store or on Google Play to find all the local stories you care about the most. And to circle back to that story about the Detroit Lions, we took a look at the odds. A $100 bet on the Lions to win the Super Bowl would pay out $2,300. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night.